Viewtiful Joe Double Trouble is the first Viewtiful Joe game to be on a handheld, and since it's on the DS, you can expect a lot of touchscreen stuff to be thrown in there. Basically, the story follows Joe as he fights this evil army called the Maddow. He has to go through 6 different worlds in this theme park called Movie Land. And he has to use his VFX powers and beat up bad guys and fight a bunch of bosses and get this film back for Captain Blue. So basically, the gameplay is pretty similar to past Viewtiful Joe games, where you'll just fight a bunch of bad guys and use your VFX powers to manipulate the environment, fight bosses, things like that. Since this uses the touchscreen so heavily, there'll be a lot of puzzle solving as opposed to just a lot of button mashing action. And the puzzle solving comes from the 3 different VFX powers that use the DS touchscreen. The 3 VFX powers are slide, scratch, and split. Basically, you just move your finger on the DS touchscreen to manipulate things in the environment. You can also use it for combat a little bit, but for the most part, these touchscreen VFX powers are just there to solve puzzles. You can kind of rearrange the environment to get past a certain area, or you can zoom in and flip a switch, things like that. The VFX powers are fairly well implemented here, and you'll use them quite a bit, but at the same time, the DS touchscreen is a little bit imprecise, and there's no tactile feedback, so it can be a little bit awkward at first to get the hang of it. Plus, there's multiple different motions that you can make with your fingers, so if you make one, you might accidentally activate the wrong VFX power if you aren't completely precise. The combat is still what you'd expect from Viewtiful Joe, but there's only one real VFX power that's specifically designed for combat, and that's the slow motion power. You still have that. You can just hold L and you go into slow motion. You can punch a guy into the air, jump up, kick him, basically until just beat the crap out of your enemies in all kinds of stylish and cool ways. And you can still do the thing where you slow down time and punch a bullet or a missile back at an enemy. That's still in here. But for the most part, combat really isn't the focus of this game. You'll only fight a couple guys at a time, and while it's still satisfying, it's not quite as involved and as exciting as it was in previous Viewtiful Joe games. The only problem is that the stages can get a little bit tedious towards the end, because you pretty much fall into a pattern of going to a stage, fight a couple bad guys, solve a puzzle, move on to the next stage, fight a couple bad guys, solve a puzzle. And the puzzles really aren't that difficult to solve, because the camera does a fly-through every single time you enter a new stage, so it shows you exactly what you need to do. And also, it tells you exactly what VFX powers to use, because there's a little icon that says slide or scratch. And so there's really no challenge in the puzzles, and they kind of get repetitive towards the end. The game is pretty good for people who are die-hard fans of the Viewtiful Joe series, or for people who just want a good side-scrolling action game on DS. It's definitely a good game, but it is pretty short. There are only 6 levels, and as I said, it gets a little bit repetitive towards the end, so you won't be seeing a whole lot of variety here. At the same time, there are multiple difficulty settings, so you can go through and play multiple times, and it'll be a little bit different experience. But for the most part, it's kind of a short game. If you're a Viewtiful Joe fan, you should definitely add this one to your collection, because it provides the same kind of fun and action that the Viewtiful Joe series is known for. If you're just looking for an action game on the DS, this is also a pretty good choice, but you might want to rent it first, or borrow it from a friend.